The CEO's impossible deal, she was pregnant. She offered me $5 million to be the father. You think you can just throw a number like that around? Who the hell do you think you are? But when Ethan Miller saw the cashier's check with all those zeros, he shut his mouth and signed on the dotted line. It was $5 million. Only an idiot would say no. All he had to do was play the part of a loving husband and father. How hard could that be for $5 million bucks? But when a contract was up, who would really want to be the guy who cleans up someone else's mess? Ethan had been in Chicago for a month and was still jobless. A freshly minted graduate with a degree from a decent state school, he figured he was a gold nugget. But in Chicago, the streets were paved with them, and they were all bigger, purer, and seemed to shine brighter than he ever could. 3 days ago, he'd interviewed at Advance Corp. The hiring manager had asked a few boilerplate questions before sending him home with a crisp, "We'll be in touch." "We'll be in touch," Ethan muttered, staring at the water-stained ceiling of his bleak, shoebox apartment. The kiss of death. He just paid rent 2 days ago. His bank account was down to its last $500. If he didn't land a job this month, he'd be eating ramen for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Just then, his phone buzzed, an unknown number lighting up the screen. "Hello." Ethan answered, his voice flat with apathy. "May I speak with Ethan Miller?" a woman's voice asked. It was professional, cool, and distant. This is the Human Resources Department at Advance Corp. We'd like to invite you to a second-round interview tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the Starbucks on Michigan Avenue. "Oh, a second interview?" Ethan sat up, the springs of his cheap mattress groaning in protest. "Yes, a second interview. Please be on time." She hung up before he could respond. Ethan stared at his call history, stunned. He'd actually made it to the second round. "Looks like I might be able to afford groceries next month after all." The next morning, Ethan was up at dawn. He pulled his only suit from its hanger, a slightly too shiny Navy number that made him look like an insurance salesman. He spent a solid 20 minutes in the bathroom trying to tame his hair and project an aura of competence he didn't feel. He arrived at the Starbucks 15 minutes early. The interviewer from Advance Corp hadn't arrived yet, so Ethan found the table with the reserved sign and sat, trying to look casual. His palms were sweating and a nervous tremor had taken up residence in his right leg. With 2 minutes to 10, a figure appeared at the entrance, and every head in the coffee shop turned. Ethan looked up and felt the air leave his lungs. She was tall, at least 5'9", and moved with the kind of lethal grace that made you want to both run for cover and beg for her attention. She wore an impeccably tailored black suit, the jacket sharp at the shoulders, the pencil skirt hugging her curves. Her shoes were black Louboutins with their signature red soles. Her dark hair was pulled back into a severe, elegant chignon, revealing a face so exquisitely sculpted it was almost intimidating. Her eyes were sharp, her expression unreadable, and she radiated an aura that screamed, "Do not approach." Then she walked directly to his table and sat down. Though he was taller, her commanding presence made him feel like he was shrinking in his chair. "Ethan Miller?" He nodded quickly, fumbling to offer the pristine copy of his resume. "That's me." She took it, glanced at it for a fraction of a second, and pushed it aside without reading a word. Then, from a sleek leather briefcase, she produced a thick document. "Read this." Ethan took the file. As he flipped through the pages, his confusion grew. It was a prenuptial agreement. "Excuse me? I think there's been a mistake." The woman took a sip from a glass of water a server had silently placed before her. "There's no mistake. It's a prenup." She paused, her gaze pinning him to his seat. "I'm pregnant. I'll give you $5 million. I need you to marry me and be my child's father." Ethan was sure he was having some kind of stress-induced hallucination. She wanted him to marry her, to be the fall guy for some other man's child, and was offering him a fortune to do it. "You think you could just say $5 million? Who the hell are you?" The woman smoothed a non-existent stray hair and sat up straighter. "Allow me to formally introduce myself. My name is Isabella Vance. I am the acting CEO of Advance Corp." As if to prove her point, she pulled a cashier's check from her briefcase and slid it across the table. Half believing, Ethan picked it up. He counted the zeros, his lips moving silently. Hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s. Million. It's really $5 million. He looked up from the check, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. "You're serious? You want me to be your child's father?" Isabella nodded once, a sharp, decisive movement. I'm serious. In addition to the $5 million, you'll receive a $50,000 monthly allowance. You can also have a nominal position at my company. A special assistant, perhaps. $5 million, plus 50 grand a month in pocket money. It was an insane, life-altering offer. The kind of money that could make a man forget every problem he'd ever had. But a healthy dose of caution kept him from immediately agreeing. What's the catch? What do I have to do? Is there a time limit? Isabella tapped the table twice with a perfectly manicured nail. In public, we are husband and wife. At home, we are not. As for the time limit, she paused, her gaze unwavering. The arrangement ends when the child starts kindergarten. They talked through the finer points. After satisfying himself that there were no hidden traps, Ethan agreed. Walking out of the Starbucks, he held the $5 million check in one hand and the 4-year contract in the other. A moment ago, his future had been a murky, uncertain mess. Now, staring at the check, all that anxiety evaporated, replaced by a giddy, unadulterated joy. He'd pieced together the basics of her situation. Her college sweetheart, the one that got away, had knocked her up and then left the country, abandoning her. She had just taken the reins of Advance Corp, and an unwed pregnancy with a runaway father would be a PR nightmare that could jeopardize her position with the board and her powerful family. The doctors had also advised against terminating the pregnancy. By some cosmic stroke of luck or misfortune, depending on how you looked at it, his resume had landed on her desk, and he had become her solution. Of course, now that he knew she was pregnant, he understood the unspoken part of the deal. If he didn't agree, a woman with her resources had a million ways to make sure he kept his mouth shut. 2 days later, dressed in a custom-tailored suit Isabella had arranged for him, Ethan found himself at City Hall. After a blur of paperwork and stilted vows, a marriage license was in his hand. The ink was still wet. Now, Isabella said, tucking the certificate into her briefcase, her tone leaving no room for argument. We're going to see my parents. Oh, okay, Ethan mumbled. You're the boss. He followed her out to a waiting Rolls-Royce. The driver navigated the city traffic smoothly, eventually pulling up to the gates of a sprawling estate in the exclusive suburb of Lake Forest. Before they got out, Isabella turned to him, her eyes intense. Remember the story I told you? Don't blow it. Ethan gave her a thumbs up. Relax. I'm a professional. Isabella's parents were seated in a living room so large it could have swallowed his entire apartment building. They looked surprised to see their daughter enter with a strange man. Mrs. Vance rose first. Isabella, dear. And this is... Mom, Dad, this is Ethan Miller, my husband, Isabella announced calmly. We got married this morning. A stunned silence fell over the room. Mr. and Mrs. Vance stared mouths agape. Ethan felt his own jaw go slack. He hadn't realized she was going to lead with a full frontal assault. Mr. Vance found his voice first, his eyes darting between Ethan and his daughter. You. Him. What? You couldn't have given us a little warning? The man's voice was thick with anger. Ethan quickly stepped forward. Sir, ma'am, I'm pregnant, Isabella said, cutting him off. Her voice was still eerily calm, as if she were discussing the weather. It's his. Ethan's brain short-circuited. He thought this was just a meet and greet, a polite dinner. He hadn't signed up for a double-barreled shotgun blast of I got married, and I'm pregnant, and he's the father. One bombshell wasn't enough for her. She had to drop two. He watched Mr. Vance's expression shift from shock to rage, and then to something that looked terrifyingly like homicidal intent. This $5 million was going to be hard-earned. The silence in the room became heavy and suffocating. Ethan could feel Mr. Vance's glare slicing into him. Mrs. Vance had a hand over her mouth, her eyes wide as saucers. You bastard! Mr. Vance suddenly roared, snatching a heavy crystal ashtray from the coffee table and hurling it at Ethan's head. Ethan ducked just in time. The ashtray whizzed past his ear and shattered against the wall behind him. Sir, please, just let me explain. Explain what? Mr. Vance was shaking with fury. You knocked up my daughter and tricked her into marrying you. He seized a porcelain vase, readying it for another throw, but misses. Vance managed to grab his arm. Ethan seized the opportunity to whisper to Isabella. This wasn't in the brochure. She whispered back, her voice tight. Get through tonight, I'll add 200 grand. Ethan's eyes widened. He took a deep breath, straightened his tie, and turned to face his new in-laws. Sir, ma'am, he said, his voice filled with a sudden, profound sincerity. Isabella and I are truly in love. I just hope you can give me a chance to prove it. This was, apparently, the wrong thing to say. Mr. Vance's fury reignited, and he shook off his wife's grip, raising the vase high. Ethan knew he couldn't dodge this time. For an extra $200,000, he could take a little pain. Just as the vase was about to fly, Isabella pressed a hand to her temple and sank to her knees. Ew, she moaned softly. Mr. Vance immediately dropped the vase and rushed to her side. Isabella, are you all right? I'll call the doctor. He and his wife helped her to the sofa. I'm fine, she murmured. Just a little dizzy. After Isabella was settled, Mr. Vance turned back to Ethan, his eyes still burning. You, Dad, don't, Isabella said, grabbing her father's wrist. The baby can't be without a father. And Ethan is good to me. Please, just give him a chance. She said it with such earnestness that for a second, even Ethan almost believed her. Mr. Vance's hand slowly fell to his side. The anger in his eyes was replaced by a grudging reason. The deed was done, the license was signed. It was too late to change anything. If you ever dare to treat my daughter poorly. Well, he didn't finish the sentence, but Ethan got the message. It was a cocktail of you're a dead man, and I will end you. Don't worry, sir. I'll take wonderful care of her. Isabella gave him a subtle nudge, a reminder. Mr. Vance straightened his jacket, composing himself. Ethan took the cue and gave a respectful bow. Dad, Mom, I promise I'll take good care of Isabella. You have my word. Later, a doctor confirmed that Isabella and the baby were healthy. The storm had passed. The extra $200,000 was as good as in his bank account. Dinner was a surreal, tense affair. Ethan nervously fielded questions from Isabella's parents, fabricating a whirlwind romance on the spot, with Isabella occasionally correcting a detail. It was the most lies he had ever told in a single day. After leaving the Vance estate, Isabella's driver took them to a sleek high-rise on the Gold Coast. Her apartment was a sprawling penthouse that overlooked the lake. His luggage, he noted, had already been delivered. As he settled into the plush guest room, it finally sank in. His new life as a kept man had officially begun. The next few months passed in a surreal haze. Ethan officially became a special assistant at Advance Corp. His workday, from 9 to 5, consisted of playing games on his phone in a quiet, well-appointed office. As long as he didn't disturb anyone, he could do whatever he wanted. The other employees gave him curious looks, but the moment they learned he was Isabella's husband, they quickly averted their eyes. When Isabella's pregnancy started to show, even the office gossip dried up completely. Isabella gave him a supplementary credit card, onto which his $50,000 allowance was deposited like clockwork each month. At home, he didn't have to lift a finger. A full-time housekeeper handled everything. His only real duties were to assist Isabella when her pregnancy made certain tasks difficult. Time flew. As Isabella's belly grew, so did Ethan's list of responsibilities. Her parents visited often, and Ethan had to play the doting son-in-law. He accompanied Isabella to every prenatal checkup and Lamaze class. He learned to massage her legs when she got cramps in the middle of the night, to apply stretch mark oil to her taut skin, and to absorb every piece of information from the mountain of parenting books she'd bought. He performed his duties diligently. After all, she was paying him a fortune. The least he could do was make her feel like she was getting her money's worth. One night, at 2:28 a.m., Ethan was asleep on a mattress on the floor of Isabella's room when a sharp cry of pain jolted him awake. He fumbled for the light. The sheets beneath Isabella were soaked. She was clutching her stomach, her face pale and beaded with sweat. My water broke, she gasped. Get me to the hospital. Now. Ethan didn't even bother to change. He threw on a pair of sweats, scooped her into his arms, and carried her to the elevator. The hospital go-bag had been packed and waiting in the trunk of her Maybach for weeks. The roar of the V8 engine echoed through the deserted streets of downtown Chicago. He blew through 4 red lights, arriving at Northwestern Memorial in record time. Ethan waited in the sterile, brightly lit maternity ward for what felt like an eternity. Isabella's parents paced anxiously nearby. He didn't dare look at his phone, so he just sat and stared at the clock on the wall. After 5 agonizing hours, the light above the delivery room door finally went out. Ethan let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. The $5 million baby had arrived. A nurse emerged, holding a tightly swaddled bundle. "Congratulations," she said, beaming. "It's a girl. Mom and baby are doing well." Then, the nurse, along with Isabella's parents, looked expectantly at Ethan. He was frozen for a moment, his mind blank. Then it clicked. Right. He was the dad. He stepped forward and took the tiny, wrinkled creature from the nurse's arms. He held her carefully, following the nurse's whispered instructions. The baby, who had been crying moments before, quieted in his arms, her tiny fists uncurling. When they wheeled Isabella out, she was pale but composed. Her gaze fell on Ethan holding there, her daughter. A flicker of something unreadable passed through her eyes. He may have been a hired stand-in, but in that moment, under the harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital, he looked for all the world like a real father. 3 years vanished in the blink of an eye. Lily Vance was old enough for kindergarten, which meant the contract between Ethan and Isabella was about to expire. Ethan stood outside the prestigious day school, another face in the crowd of parents waiting for their children. But unlike them, the child he was here to pick up wasn't his. They didn't share a single drop of blood. Soon, a little girl in a pink dress and a tiny backpack came running out of the building. "Daddy." The moment she saw Ethan, Lily launched herself at him, colliding with his knees in a giggling heap. He swung her up, took her backpack, and held her hand as they walked toward the parking garage. "Did you have fun at school today?" "So much fun," Lily chirped. She held up a piece of construction paper. "Look, Daddy, we learned how to draw today." Ethan took the paper. It was a masterpiece of abstract expressionism. "This is amazing. Tell Daddy what you drew." "It's you, silly." Lily pouted, pointing a small finger at a lopsided stick figure on the page. "See? That's your big eyes. And that's your big mouth." Ethan looked at the drawing. It looked nothing like him. "It's the most beautiful drawing I've ever seen. Let's take it home and show Mommy, okay?" "Okay." As Lily scrambled into her car's seat, the hairs on the back of Ethan's neck stood up. He clicked her into place, shut the door, and scanned the area. His eyes landed on a man in dark sunglasses leaning against a lamppost across the street. When their gazes met, the man quickly looked away, pretending to be engrossed in his phone. Ethan shrugged it off and drove to the towering glass skyscraper that housed Advance Corp. "Mommy." Isabella was at her desk, her expression all business, but the moment she saw Lily, her face softened. She scooped her daughter up and kissed her rosy cheek. "Did you have a good day at school, my love?" "I did, and I drew a picture." Lily proudly presented her artwork. Isabella studied the abstract scribbles. "Oh, this is lovely. Who did you draw, sweetie?" "It's Daddy," Lily declared. Isabella put the drawing down, and her eyes met Ethan's over Lily's head. He was sitting on the couch, an outsider in this tender family moment. A strange emotion flickered in Isabella's chest, but she quickly suppressed it. "It's a wonderful drawing." At 6 o'clock, Lily was asleep in the back of the Rolls-Royce. Isabella turned to Ethan, who was in the driver's seat. "The divorce papers. My lawyers are still working on them," she said, her voice quiet. "With Lily just starting school, the custody arrangements are a bit more complicated. I'll try to speed them up." Ethan nodded, his eyes on the road. "Okay, no problem." A few days later, a call from Isabella's father came early in the morning. Ethan was on the floor with Lily, attempting to build a structurally sound block tower. "Now," Isabella said into her phone, a frown creasing her brow. "What's so urgent?" "Fine. Yes, we'll be right there." She hung up and turned to Ethan. "My dad wants us at the house." Immediately, he said it's important. Though he didn't understand, Ethan complied. He helped Lily with her coat, and 30 minutes later, they were walking into the Vance estate. The moment she stepped into the living room, Isabella froze. Sitting on the couch across from her parents was another man. Ethan recognized him instantly. It was the man in the sunglasses from his school. "Isabella, it's been a long time," the man said, setting down his teacup. He was handsome in a slick, predatory way. Isabella's face hardened into a mask of fury. "Blake, what are you doing here?" The man Blake smiled. "What's wrong? Am I not welcome? After all, I'm Lily's biological father." "Don't be ridiculous." Isabella's voice was sharp. "Lily is Ethan's daughter." Ah, Ethan thought, pieces clicking into place. This must be the ex-boyfriend, the one that got away. Mister. Vance stood up, his expression grim. He had often commented on how little Lily resembled Ethan. What is going on here? I want an explanation from all three of you right now. His parents' eyes darted between Isabella, Ethan, and Blake. Ethan looked at Isabella, unsure of how to play this scene. It wasn't in the script. Dad, I told you Lily is Ethan's child. Blake let out a short, derisive laugh. Come on, Isabella. I know you're still angry with me, but you don't have to lie to your parents. If you don't believe me, let's get a DNA test. That will clear things up. Ethan remained silent, a statue in the middle of the drama. A DNA test would blow his cover wide open. He could only watch as Isabella took center stage. To his surprise, she scoffed. A DNA test? Fine. Then, under the stunned gazes of everyone in the room, she pulled a folded document from her purse and tossed it onto the coffee table. It slid to a stop in front of her father. Mister. Vance snatched it up. As he read, his expression shifted from anger to utter confusion. This can't be right. Sensing something was wrong, Blake grabbed the paper from him. His own face paled as he read. This is impossible. Isabella, this has to be a fake. It's in black and white, with a seal from a certified lab, Isabella replied coldly. The probability of paternity between Lily and Ethan is 99.99%. Do you have any other questions? Isabella was the picture of confidence. Ethan, on the other hand, was completely bewildered. He'd had no idea she'd gone to the trouble of having a fake DNA test made. Blake's face cycled through shades of white, red, and finally a mottled purple. He crouched down, forcing a smile at Lily. Lily, sweetie, I'm your real daddy. Come here. Lily clutched Ethan's pant leg, hiding behind him. No, you're a bad man. He's my daddy. Isabella moved to Ethan's side, her hand resting naturally on his arm. Please leave, Blake, or I will call the police. Checkmated, Blake had no choice. His face was a mask of rage as he stood up. Before he left, he shot a venomous look at Ethan. This isn't over. We'll see about this. After he was gone, a heavy silence descended on the room. Mr. and Mrs. Vance were clearly still reeling. Dad, Mom, we should go, Isabella said abruptly, pulling Ethan toward the door. In the car on the way home, Lily slept soundly in the back seat. Ethan, who had been silent the whole time, finally spoke. That DNA test. I had someone make it. It's a fake, Isabella said, cutting him off. No, not that. Ethan said quickly. I was going to ask, does this kind of thing cost extra? After all, this was an unforeseen complication, and Isabella had a precedent for hazard pay. The car fell silent, save for the soft hum of the air conditioner. Suddenly, Isabella laughed. It was a strange sound, a mix of self-mockery and relief. I'll add $50,000 to your check this month. Deal. After agreeing to the bonus, Isabella said no more. She rested her head against her hand, her gaze fixed on Ethan's reflection in the passenger side window, her expression unreadable. Daddy, look at my castle. In front of Lily sat a lopsided tower of colorful blocks. Her small face was beaming with pride. Ethan, sitting cross-legged on the plush rug, widened his eyes in mock astonishment. Wow, that's the most amazing castle I've ever seen, he said, dragging out the words and gently tapping the highest block. Does a princess live inside? Daddy, Mommy, and me live there, Lily said seriously, pointing to a section of the tower. And that's your room, Daddy. Ethan's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. 3 years. Every time the little girl played house, she always put the three of them together. In her innocent world, her family was perfect, complete with a mommy, a daddy, and loving grandparents. As for his own parents, they weren't part of the deal, so Isabella had told Lily that her other grandparents lived very far away. He was startled by how much the little girl had attached herself to him. She often snuck into his room to sleep, insisted he carry her everywhere, and her kindergarten art projects were almost always about him. The sound of the front door opening broke his reverie. Isabella walked in, crouching down in front of Lily. Lily, sweetie, would you like to go have a sleepover at Grandma and Grandpa's house? Lily's eyes lit up. Yes. Is Daddy coming too? Isabella glanced at Ethan. Daddy has to work. Ethan immediately understood his cue. That's right, kiddo. I have to work late. You go on ahead, and I'll come get you as soon as I'm done. Lily's lower lip jutted out, but she nodded bravely. Okay, but you have to come get me soon, Daddy. Ethan helped her into her little jacket and fixed her pigtails, a sudden pang hitting him as he realized this might be the last time he did this for her. But Lily was oblivious, chattering excitedly about the new song she was going to sing for her grandparents. After they dropped her off at the Vance estate, Lily skipping happily up the driveway, Isabella drove them back to the city. She hadn't told her parents about the contract. Ethan didn't care. Isabella would handle the fallout. Okay, say goodbye to Daddy, Isabella said softly as they pulled up to her building. Bye, Daddy. Lily, who had ridden back with them, threw her arms around Ethan's neck, giving him a big, wet kiss on the cheek. Come get me soon, okay? Ethan's nod felt stiff. Yeah, okay. In the car on the way back to her penthouse, Ethan asked, Is all the paperwork ready? Isabella was slumped in the passenger seat, watching the city lights blur past. Yes. Okay, I'll pack my things tonight. I could be out by morning. Isabella shifted in her seat, then sank back into it. You don't have to rush. The county clerk's office is closed tomorrow. It's Saturday. We can't file until Monday. You could stay for 2 more days. I mean, you don't have anywhere else to go, do you? Ethan shook his head. I'd rather not. I'll find a hotel. I'm heading back to my hometown in a couple of days anyway. Isabella pressed her lips together, her eyes still fixed on his reflection in the window. So, soon. Yeah, thanks to you. I'm a man of means now. Not Chicago rich, but comfortable enough. Isabella said nothing more. Back at the penthouse, Ethan began to pack. Isabella sat on the sofa, watching him move back and forth from the guest room, completely silent. It didn't take long. After 4 years, all his worldly possessions still fit into a single suitcase and a backpack. When he emerged, ready to leave, Isabella shot to her feet as if she'd been jolted by an electric shock. Which hotel did you book? I could drive you. Ethan waved a hand. No need. I'll get an Uber. Don't worry about it. Isabella bit her lip, looking like she wanted to say something more, but all that came out was a quiet okay. Ethan turned and left without looking back. In an instant, the vast, empty penthouse was silent, leaving Isabella utterly alone. Ethan spent the next day holed up in his hotel room, ordering room service and channel surfing. The next morning, he decided to venture out for breakfast. He was at a small, greasy spoon diner, a plate of eggs and bacon just set in front of him, when an unwelcome guest appeared. Blake Harding stood over his table, a smug look on his face. Can we talk? 10 minutes later, after finishing his breakfast, Ethan was sitting across from him in a sterile coffee shop. Mr. Miller, a pleasure, Blake said, extending a hand as if they were business associates. Ethan shook it briefly. A server brought their coffees. Blake waited until she was out of earshot before leaning in. I know about your contract with Isabella. Ethan's expression didn't change. He took a sip of his coffee. Oh, don't play dumb, Blake said, pulling a file from his briefcase. I have the proof. Isabella's sudden marriage 4 years ago. The timing was too convenient. And 2 days before the wedding, a very large deposit appeared in your bank account. $5 million, to be exact. And what's your point? Ethan leaned back, feigning boredom. A triumphant smile spread across Blake's face. It's simple. I'll give you $5 million. You disappear and leave Isabella alone. Ethan sat up a little straighter. He'd never met someone so eager to just give money away. Seeing Ethan's lack of immediate response, Blake misread his silence as a negotiation tactic. Is that not enough? Fine. $6 million. Ethan's eyes widened. The guy was a fool with too much money. He'd only been processing the offer, and now he'd gotten $1 million raise. He cleared his throat, affecting an air of dignity. I'm not the kind of man whose loyalties can be bought. $8 million. That's my final offer, Blake said, crossing his legs, oozing confidence. Ethan let out a short, sharp laugh. I'll have you know. He paused for dramatic effect. That for $8 million, I accept your terms. Blake laughed a smug, ugly sound. See? Your feelings for her weren't so strong after all. Easily bought and paid for. Ethan didn't bother to respond. He wasn't wrong. You can't betray feelings you don't have. Back in his hotel room, just after depositing Blake's check via his banking app, his phone rang. It was Lily. Isabella had gotten her a kid-friendly smartwatch when she started school. Ethan stared at the caller ID. He hesitated, then swiped to answer. Hello. Daddy, what are you doing? I'm at work, kiddo, Ethan lied, his own voice sounding hollow to his ears. I miss you, Daddy. When are you coming to get me? Lily's voice was small and soft, the sound of cartoons audible in the background. Ethan hated lying to her, but the divorce was a done deal. All he could do now was soften the blow and try to ignore the gnawing guilt in his gut. You be a good girl for Grandma and Grandpa, he heard himself say. Daddy will come get you as soon as he's done with work. Okay, Lily sang out. But you have to hurry, Daddy. I will. After hanging up, Ethan stared at the blank screen of his phone for a long time, the weight of his deception settling heavily upon him. Monday morning, 8:30 sharp, Ethan was standing outside the county clerk's office. A few minutes later, Isabella arrived. She was wearing a loose-fitting sundress, and her makeup was minimal, but couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. Ethan didn't comment. The two of them walked inside and took a number. When it was their turn, they approached the window. The clerk was a woman in her 40s with a world-weary expression. Got all your documents? She asked, not looking up. Yes, Isabella said, pulling a folder from her purse. The clerk began processing the paperwork. The only sounds in the quiet room, the clicking of her keyboard and the rustle of papers. Ethan noticed a sheen of sweat on Isabella's forehead. Her hands were pressed against her stomach, as if she were in pain. You okay? He asked quietly. Isabella shook her head. I'm fine. But just then, she clapped a hand over her mouth and let out a small, retching sound. Oh, the entire office fell silent. All eyes turned to Isabella. Ethan froze, his mind struggling to catch up. The clerk looked from Isabella's pale face to her hand on her stomach, and a sudden, terrible understanding dawned in her eyes. She stood up and pointed an accusatory finger at Ethan. Your wife is pregnant, and you're divorcing her? What kind of man are you? Ethan stared, utterly dumbfounded. Who? Who was pregnant? Isabella. It was impossible. The most intimate contact they'd ever had was holding hands in front of her parents. They were strangers who shared a roof. No, wait, that's not. Ethan stammered, his defense pathetic and weak. Not what? Another clerk from a nearby window chimed in. Look at your poor wife. She's got morning sickness so bad, and you have a nerve to drag her down here for a divorce. Gossip spreads like wildfire, especially in a place like this. Within seconds, a small crowd had gathered. The story was already morphing as it was passed from person to person. Isabella was having morning sickness. Ethan had a mistress. He was abandoning his pregnant wife and child. Seeing the situation spiraling out of control, Ethan snatched their documents back from the counter and pulled Isabella by the arm, hustling her out of the building. The moment they reached her car, he let go of her arm. What the hell was that? Isabella, who now looked perfectly fine, straightened her dress. Any sign of her supposed illness had vanished. I've changed my mind. I don't want a divorce. Huh? Ethan laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. You what? You don't want a divorce. That's right, she said calmly. And Lily misses you. She asked me last night when her daddy was coming home. Ethan felt a wave of incredulous anger wash over him. Isabella, are you insane? This was a business transaction. You paid me to be your daughter's father. The deal is over. Do you understand? I can keep paying you, she said, looking him straight in the eye. Do you really think I'm the kind of person who's just in it for the money? Isabella raised a skeptical eyebrow. Aren't you? His righteous anger deflated instantly. Okay, she had a point. But this was different. Name your price, she pressed on. Whatever you want, if I can afford it, it's yours. After a moment of silence, she asked quietly, or is it that you want a child of your own? What? I can give you one, she said, her voice eerily calm. Lily has been asking for a little brother or sister anyway. This time, Ethan really did laugh. You have completely lost your mind. I'm perfectly sane, Isabella said, standing tall. You can continue to be Lily's father. I'll pay you $80,000 a month. If you want a biological child, we can start trying right away. Ethan let out a long, weary sigh. I'm curious about one thing. What exactly do you think I am? Isabella frowned, for the first time looking uncertain. A husband for hire? Ethan continued, his voice laced with bitterness. A man you paid to raise a child you had with your ex-boyfriend? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. It was clear she'd never considered his perspective. I, she stammered, a rare sight. Look, Isabella, he said coldly. I'm a person, a normal man. Our contract is over. I expect you to finalize this divorce, and soon. The terms she offered were staggering, but being the fall guy was one thing. Being the fall guy, while her ex was still sniffing around and her parents despised him, that was a bridge too far. He was done. But Isabella was resolute. I will not agree to a divorce. Does it matter if you agree? Ethan shot back. I can sue for it. All I have to do is tell the court that Lily isn't my child. The color drained from Isabella's face. She clearly hadn't expected him to play that card. Thanks to your little performance, we're not getting this done today, he said, his voice flat. I'll be back here tomorrow, at the same time. Be there. Otherwise, I'm filing the lawsuit. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Isabella standing alone and helpless on the sidewalk. That afternoon, when Isabella arrived at the kindergarten to pick up Lily, the playground was already mostly empty. She was running a little late. Mommy. After being signed out by her teacher, Lily ran into her mother's arms. Isabella knelt and hugged her daughter tightly. I miss you, Mommy. Lily planted a kiss on her cheek, then peered around her. Is Daddy not back yet? Isabella smoothed her daughter's hair. Daddy's still busy with work. He'll be back in a few days. How many is a few days? Lily asked, her big eyes wide with curiosity. Isabella forced a smile. Not many. It'll be soon. She tried to change the subject. Did you have fun at school today? I did. Children are easily distracted, and Lily was soon chattering away about her day as her mother led her to the car. As they reached the parking lot, a voice stopped them in their tracks. Isabella. She turned, instinctively pulling Lily behind her. It was Blake Harding. Her expression soured. What are you doing here? Get lost. I came to see my daughter, Blake said, stepping forward and extending a hand to Lily. Come on, sweetie. Come to Daddy. Lily buried her face in Isabella's side, her small hands clutching her mother's dress. No, you're not my daddy. Blake's face darkened for a moment before he plastered on another smile. Lily, I'm your real daddy. That other man is just a fake. Get out of here, Isabella snapped, or I'll call security. Oh, Isabella, Blake said, his voice oozing with false sympathy. I know you and that hired hand of yours are getting a divorce. Isabella scoffed. You don't know anything. My husband and I are not getting a divorce. Please, Blake sneered. He's just a gold digger. You shouldn't put so much stock in him. That's none of your business, Isabella said, her eyes flashing with anger. I'm telling you for the last time, leave, or I'm calling the police. Blake just smiled. That's fine. I can wait for you two to finalize things. On the drive home, Lily suddenly asked, Mommy, what does divorce mean? Isabella's hands tightened on the steering wheel. How could she explain this? It's nothing, sweetie. Don't worry about it. In the back seat, Lily clutched a small stuffed rabbit Ethan had bought her. Is Daddy not going to be my daddy anymore? A sharp pain lanced through Isabella's heart. She glanced at her daughter in the rearview mirror. The little girl's head was bowed, her fingers twisting the rabbit's ears. Of course not, Isabella said, forcing a light tone. Daddy loves you very much. Why would you think that? Because. Lily's voice was barely a whisper, thick with unshed tears. My friend Chloe at school said her mommy and daddy got a divorce, and then her daddy went away. Isabella was at a loss for words. How could she explain to a 3-year-old that the man she called daddy was just a stranger she'd paid to do a job? Chloe's family is different from our family, was all she could manage. Daddy will be back in a couple of days. And when he comes back, we'll all go to the amusement park, okay? Really? Lily's head snapped up, her eyes shining with hope. Really, Isabella lied, her own smile feeling brittle. That night, after giving Lily a bath and reading her a bedtime story, Isabella watched her daughter fall asleep, clutching the stuffed rabbit. She closed the door softly and went to the living room, pouring herself a glass of red wine. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, the lights of Chicago glittered. Isabella took a sip of wine and was struck by how vast and empty the penthouse felt. Usually at this time, Ethan would be in the living room playing with Lily, or in her room, telling her a story. Just then, her phone rang, startling her. It was her mother. Hi, Mom. Isabella. Her mother's voice was frantic. Lily just called us. She was crying, saying something about you and Ethan getting a divorce. What on earth is going on? Isabella was confused. When did she? But her mother's voice rose. Just now. From her smartwatch. Your father and I are on our way over. Before Isabella could reply, the line went dead. She pressed her fingers to her temples, a headache beginning to bloom. Half an hour later, the doorbell rang. Her parents stood in the hallway, their faces grim. As soon as her mother stepped inside, she asked, "Where's Ethan?" "He's on a business trip," Isabella said. "A business trip?" Her father scoffed. "What kind of business trip? His job consists of playing on his phone and collecting a paycheck, doesn't it?" Meanwhile, her mother had gone into the guest room and found it empty. "Isabella, are you two really getting a divorce?" Unseen by them, the door to Lily's room was cracked open. The little girl was standing there, hugging her rabbit, listening to every word. Isabella took a deep breath. "We are not getting a divorce." "Then where is he?" her father demanded. "We had a fight. A small one," Isabella said, trying to sound calm. "He's staying somewhere else for a few days to cool off." Her father's voice was laced with suspicion. "Tell me the truth. Is Lily really Ethan's child?" "Of course she is." Isabella's voice rose, a defensive edge to it, before it fell again. "Then why don't they look anything alike?" her father pressed. It was a question that had plagued both of her parents for 3 years. Then, after seeing Blake Harding at their house, their old suspicions had resurfaced. They had known about her relationship with Blake in college. The DNA test had temporarily put their doubts to rest, but now they were back with a vengeance. "Isabella, honey," her mother said gently, "is Blake the baby's father?" "No, he's not," Isabella said, though even to her own ears, the words sounded hollow. "Then are you getting a divorce?" "Mom, Ethan and I are fine. We are not getting a divorce." Her mother stared at her for a long moment, then sighed. "I hope you're telling the truth. Lily is too young to lose her father." Isabella nodded, a bitter taste in her mouth. Yes, Lily couldn't lose her father, even if she had to pay him more to stay. The next morning, Ethan arrived at the county clerk's office early. Isabella showed up a few minutes later, the dark circles under her eyes even more pronounced than the day before. She obviously hadn't slept. Ethan didn't care. "You're here." Isabella nodded, her energy depleted. "I'm here." "Then let's go," he said, turning to walk inside. Isabella grabbed his wrist. "Wait, now what?" Ethan asked, his patience worn thin. She quickly let go of his arm. She took a deep breath, her voice barely a whisper. "Can we not do this?" Ethan was tired of this conversation. "We had a contract. It's over. There's no reason to drag this out. I can give you more money. 100,000 a month," she said, her voice lacking conviction. Ethan sighed. "It's not about the money." "Then what is it about?" Her voice suddenly rose, sharp and loud, drawing the attention of passers-by. "I have money. I'm not unattractive. I even offered to have a child. What more could you possibly want? Tell me." Ethan was taken aback by her sudden outburst. The cool, composed was gone, replaced by a desperate, emotional woman. He instinctively took a step back. "Don't be like this. It's pointless." "Like what?" Isabella's eyes were red-rimmed. "I just don't want to get a divorce." "What's so wrong with that?" "Our entire relationship is built on money," Ethan said, trying to reason with her. "Do you really think that's good for Lily?" "Daddy!" A child's cry cut through their argument. Lily came running toward them, launching herself at Ethan's legs. "Daddy, don't get a divorce. Don't leave me," she sobbed, her small face buried in his pants, tears and snot smearing his trousers. "I'll be good. I'll listen to you and Mommy." Ethan stared at Isabella, completely bewildered. Isabella looked just as shocked. She had no idea how Lily, a small child, had managed to get here from her school. Isabella quickly scooped Lily up. "Lily? Honey, how did you get here?" Lily struggled in her mother's arms. "I want Daddy. I don't want a divorce," she wailed, fat tears rolling down her cheeks. Their little drama had attracted a crowd. People were starting to stare and whisper, "Look at that guy. His kid is so cute, and he still wants a divorce." Men these days, no sense of responsibility. That poor little girl. Isabella pulled a tissue from her purse and tried to wipe Lily's face. "Sure, Lily, it's okay. Mommy and Daddy aren't getting a divorce." "I want Daddy to hold me," Lily sobbed. Isabella looked from the crying child in her arms to Ethan, her expression helpless. Ethan sighed. He took Lily from Isabella. The moment she was in his arms, she clung to him tightly. "Daddy, don't get a divorce," Chloe said. "Divorce means my daddy doesn't want me anymore." Ethan didn't know what to say. He had to go through with this, but he couldn't bring himself to lie to the child again. "Let's just go home," he said quietly to Isabella, gesturing at the growing crowd. After paying the taxi driver who had brought Lily, they all got into Isabella's car. On the drive back, Lily refused to let go of Ethan, as if he might vanish if she loosened her grip. The car was silent. Isabella kept glancing at Ethan, but he just stared out the window, his jaw set. Lily refused to go to school, so the driver took them back to the penthouse. Even after they were home, she wouldn't let go of Ethan's hand. It took a long time and a lot of promises from both him and Isabella to finally coax her into taking a nap. The moment Lily was asleep, Ethan headed for the door. "You're really leaving? You won't even stay one night," Isabella said, blocking his path. Ethan didn't answer. He knew if he didn't leave now, he never would. After all, no one really wants to be the guy who cleans up someone else's mess. "We've lived together for years," Isabella said, her voice cracking. "Don't you have any feelings for me at all?" This time, Ethan turned and looked at her. "If by feelings you mean being the paid father for a child you had with your ex-boyfriend, then no, I don't." "After all," he said, his voice cold and sharp, "even a prostitute gets to quit someday." The elevator doors opened. Before he stepped inside, he delivered his final blow. "I'm going to start the legal proceedings. It won't be good for the child, so I hope you'll just agree to this divorce and get it over with." It had been 2 weeks since the dramatic scene at the county clerk's office, and Isabella still refused to sign the divorce papers. Ethan had reluctantly started the legal process. He hated to do it, not only because of the potential harm to Lily, but also because a contested divorce could drag on for months. In the meantime, he had fallen into a strange routine. For Lily's sake, he continued to play the part of her father. Every afternoon, he would pick her up from school, take her home, play with her, read her a story, and then, once she was asleep, he would leave. At first, he had refused, but Lily had thrown such terrible tantrums, refusing to leave school without her daddy, that the teachers had called Isabella in desperation. So, Ethan had relented. He told himself it was only for a few more months. Once the divorce was finalized, he would be free. At the school gate, Lily came flying into his arms as usual. "Daddy!" Ethan crouched down, and she wrapped her arms around his neck, squeezing tightly. "Were you a good girl at school today?" "I was the best girl." "Good. Let's go home." "Okay." He buckled her in her car seat and drove toward the penthouse. It was the same routine, day in and day out. Pick up Lily, take her home, put her to bed, leave. Isabella was usually home late from the office, but he barely spoke to her, and only then if it was about Lily. The next afternoon, Ethan was in his hotel room, eating takeout, when his phone rang. It was Isabella. "Hello? What is it?" "Ethan." Her voice was shrill with panic. "Lily's gone." The fork in Ethan's hand clattered against his plate. "What? What do you mean, gone?" "The school. The teacher said a man, claiming to be her uncle, picked her up." Isabella's voice was breaking. "I checked the security footage. It was Blake. Did you call the police?" "Yes, I'm at the station now. They said they set up a roadblock on the interstate, but he crashed through the guardrail and escaped into the woods." "I'm on my way." When Ethan arrived, the area where Blake's car had gone off the road was cordoned off with police tape. Isabella was talking to an officer, her face ashen, her body trembling. "What's the situation?" Ethan asked, walking up to them. Isabella just shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Her voice was a choked whisper. "They said they haven't found her yet." Then, as if her legs could no longer support her, she collapsed against him, her body racked with sobs. "My Lily. Oh, my baby." Ethan held her, patting her back awkwardly. "It's okay. They'll find her." After getting Isabella settled in a police car, Ethan joined the search party, following the tire tracks into the dense woods. Blake's car was smashed against a tree, but it was empty. They had to keep searching. As darkness fell, the search became more difficult. Ethan, separated from the main group, saw a dilapidated structure in the distance, an old, abandoned factory. A strange feeling, a powerful hunch, pulled him toward it. He pushed open a rusted iron door. The air inside was thick with the smell of dust and decay. He let his eyes adjust to the gloom. Lily, he called out, his voice echoing in a vast, empty space. Daddy! A faint cry came from his second floor. Ethan's heart leaped. He found a rickety staircase and took the steps 2 at a time. In a corner of the second floor, by the faint light of the moon filtering through a grimy window, he saw them. Blake was holding Lily, his arm wrapped tightly around her. His leg was bent at an unnatural angle, and he had one hand clamped over her mouth. Ethan held up his hands, trying to keep his voice steady. He'd already called 911 on his way up. Let her go, Blake. What do you want? Is it money? Are you angry that I took your $8 million and didn't leave? Blake started to laugh, a chilling, unhinged sound that echoed through the factory. Money? I don't need money. I need a life. He lifted his face, and in the moonlight, Ethan could see how gaunt and skeletal he had become. His eyes were sunken, his lips cracked and dry. I have leukemia, Blake whispered. It's terminal. I need a bone marrow transplant. None of my family are a match. So, this is what this is about. You wanted me out of the picture so you could get to Lily? Yes. I was ready to die, and then I found out that crazy bitch Isabella had my child. I found out I had a chance to live. You have no idea what that feels like to be brought back from the dead. His voice was a raw, desperate scream. You didn't have to kidnap her, Ethan said, trying to reason with him. We could have talked about this. She could have donated. Liar, Blake shrieked. That woman would rather see me dead. All because I fell in love with someone else. She chased me across the country. She ruined my reputation, got my family to send me away. She'd never agree. It's not too late. Just let the girl go, and we can talk. I'll help you. I'll talk to her. Blake's eyes narrowed, and with his free hand, he pulled a pistol from the waistband of his pants. Talk? With what leverage? She's probably hoping the cops shoot me on sight. The sight of the gun sent a jolt of ice through Ethan's veins. Okay, just calm down. Possession of firearm is a serious crime. You put the gun down now, you still have a chance to walk away from this. Shut up. Blake screamed, his voice cracking. You think I care? I'm going to die anyway. And if I'm going down, she's coming with me. Just then, Lily bit down hard on the hand, covering her mouth. Blake yelped in pain, his grip loosening for a fraction of a second. It was the only opening Ethan needed. He lunged forward, tackling Blake. Bang! Bang! 2 gunshots ripped through the night. A wave of hot, searing pain shot through Ethan's arm. When the police stormed the building, they found a chaotic scene. Ethan was on his knees, clutching a bleeding shoulder. A few feet away, Blake was on his back, a dark stain spreading across his chest. The pistol lay on the floor just beyond his outstretched fingers. The world swam in and out of focus as Ethan was lifted onto a stretcher. When he woke up, it was the next morning. A small face was hovering just inches from his own. Mommy, Daddy's awake. It was Lily. Ethan tried to speak, but his throat was as dry as sand. A delicate hand brought a cup of water with a straw to his lips. He followed the hand up to its owner. It was Isabella. She looked exhausted, with dark, heavy circles under her eyes. It was clear she hadn't slept. Take it slow, she said, her voice soft as she helped him lift his head. The cool water was a balm to his parched throat. He could finally manage a few words. Blake, he's dead, Isabella said, her voice flat. A bullet to the chest. He bled out before the ambulance arrived. Ethan nodded, feeling no emotion at the news. He tried to move his shoulder and winced as a fresh wave of pain shot through him. Don't move, Isabella said, gently restraining his arm. The doctor removed the bullet, but the wound is still fresh. Does it hurt, Daddy? Lily asked, peering at his bandaged shoulder from the side of the bed. Nah, I'm tough, Ethan said, forcing a smile. The little girl's eyes were red and puffy. She'd obviously been crying for a long time. A doctor came in, declared Ethan's wound non-life-threatening, and said he could probably go home in a few days. Isabella nodded, pulling Lily aside to give the medical staff some room. Mommy, when is Daddy coming home? Lily asked. Isabella didn't answer right away. Ethan turned his head, pretending he hadn't heard. After the doctor left, Lily attached herself to Ethan's side again, refusing to leave. Isabella finally had to use the daddy needs to rest excuse to coax the tearful child out of the room. Ethan spent 5 days in the hospital. Every afternoon, Isabella would bring Lily to visit after school. When he was finally discharged, Isabella's Rolls-Royce was waiting for them at the entrance. "Let's talk about the divorce," he said as soon as they were in the car. She nodded, and 10 minutes later, they were sitting in a quiet coffee shop near the hospital. Isabella got straight to the point. "Please don't divorce me." Ethan shook his head. "I've already started the legal process. It's going to happen one way or another." Isabella reached across the table and took his uninjured hand. "I don't want to." "I do," he said, pulling his hand away. "Then, do it for Lily. She's so young. She needs a father. I'm not her father. Then what do I have to do to make you stay?" Ethan shook his head again. "Isabella, we had a business arrangement. We're not husband and wife." This time, she reached for his injured arm, her touch feather-light. "But we've lived together for so long. To me, you become my husband. But I've never thought of you as my wife." A tear escaped her eye and splashed onto the table. "Then we can learn. We can build a real relationship." Ethan pulled his arm back, his patience gone. "It's too late." Her face was streaked with tears now, her composure crumbling. "How is it too late?" "It was too late from the beginning," he said, looking her directly in the eye. "If we had met on a blind date, and you had been honest with me from the start, told me you were a single mother and just wanted to find a good man, maybe I would have considered it. But not like this." He shook his head. "It's not possible." Isabella's face went pale. She opened her mouth to argue, but no words came out. Finally, she whispered, "Can we start over? Now?" Ethan's resolve was firm. Life isn't a video game. There are no do-overs. Isabella bit her lip, her body shaking with silent sobs. When she finally composed herself, she looked up, her eyes red and defeated. "Okay," she said, her voice hoarse. "I'll agree to the divorce." And just like that, in a quiet coffee shop on a sunny afternoon, their 4-year marriage came to an end. A year later, a quiet town in Middle America. Ethan was stretched out on his couch, enjoying the air conditioning and watching a mindless sitcom. After the divorce, Isabella had given him an extra $1 million as a severance package. He'd taken all his money, returned to his hometown, bought a nice house and a sensible car, and put the rest in a bank. He was living a life of comfortable semi-retirement. The doorbell rang. With a groan, Ethan pulled himself off the couch. He assumed it was his parents, nagging him to get out of the house. He opened the door, and a small body immediately collided with his legs. "Daddy!" Ethan stumbled back, looking down in shock. Lily was hugging his leg, her face tilted up to his, a wide grin spreading from ear to ear. She had grown taller, and her hair was longer, but her bright, shining eyes were exactly the same. Ethan looked up and saw Isabella standing on his porch. She was dressed in a simple white t-shirt and jeans. She looked softer. "What are you guys doing here?" "I'm sorry to just show up like this," Isabella said, looking a little awkward. "Lily has been missing you so much. She talks about her daddy all the time." Ethan sighed and stepped aside. "Come on in." Lily immediately started exploring the house, touching everything, chattering a mile a minute about all the things that had happened in the past year. Ethan got her a juice box and listened quietly. Isabella perched on the edge of the sofa, her gaze shifting between them. "Daddy, does your shoulder still hurt?" Lily asked, pointing to the spot where he'd been shot. Ethan shook his head. "Not for a long time." "I'll make it better," she said, leaning in and blowing a puff of air on his shoulder, just like she had in the hospital a year ago. Something in Ethan's chest softened, but he quickly pushed the feeling away. He looked at Isabella. "So why are you really here?" Isabella twisted her fingers in her lap. "For Lily. Could you maybe see her once a week?" Ethan shook his head. "We're divorced, Isabella." "I know," she said, her fingers tracing the seam of the couch cushion. "But Lily, she needs—" "Does Daddy not like me anymore?" Lily suddenly asked, her big eyes filling with tears. Ethan was at a loss for words. The child was innocent in all of this. Just then, Isabella sat up straight and cleared her throat, a strange look of determination on her face. "Let me formally introduce myself." Ethan stared at her, confused. "My name is Isabella Vance. I'm the CEO of Advance Corp. I have a 4-year-old daughter, and I'm divorced." It took him a second, but then he understood. It was an echo of their first meeting, but this time, there was no contract, no pretense. It was an offer, a real one. A slow smile spread across his face, and he let out a soft laugh. All right, he said, his eyes meeting hers. I'll see Lily once a week. A hopeful light flared in Isabella's eyes, which she quickly tried to hide. Thank you.